Hello guys, so now we shall be discussing about the life cycles. Okay, so we shall be discussing the different life cycles. Now the first life cycle which we will be focusing on is the life cycle of the trematodes. Now when it comes to the trematodes, there are many trematodes. In fact, we shall be discussing a particular trematode. I mean, one by one, every life cycle we shall be discussing about each and every trematode. So the life cycle which we will be discussing today will be of Paragonimus westermanni. Paragonimus westermanni. Now, what are the things you need to focus while studying this life cycle of Paragonimus westermanni? The first important thing is that this is also called as a lung fluke. What is this called? This is called as lung fluke. Now, this is very important thing to keep in mind, that Paragonimus westermanni is also called as your lung fluke. Okay. Now, let us discuss the life cycle and then I will show you the life cycle of the CDC. Okay. So, CDC life cycles are the correct life cycles. So, I shall be showing you the life cycles of CDC later on. Now, let us discuss the life cycle. Now, while discussing the life cycle, one very important thing you need to know that the definitive host. Who is the definitive host? Who is the intermediate host in this? And what is the infective stage? These are the three main important aspects you have to know while reading any life cycle. Okay. Now, when it comes to definitive host, what is definitive host? Yeah. What is definitive host? Definitive host is that host, either anyone it can be humans as well. Okay, so definitive host most of the time are humans. So definitive hosts are those hosts in which the parasite undergoes sexual reproduction. Okay, so those hosts where, for example, if a parasite is entering into my body and undergoing sexual reproduction, then I am to be called as the definitive host. So who is the definitive host in this parasite? The definitive host here is humans. Okay, the definitive host here is humans. Now let me teach you the life cycle. Okay, let me teach you the life cycle of what is happening with the patient, and then we shall simplify it. Okay, so anyways, let us go for the life cycle. Now when it comes to the life cycle, first of all, let me draw some things. Now all of you know, this is your nasopharynx, this is your oropharynx. Nasopharynx and oropharynx together they form your laryngopharynx, isn't it? Now if I make a partition in the center, like this, posteriorly you have got your esophagus, right? So posteriorly you have got your esophagus, and then you have got your stomach all the way, and then then this is your duodenum. So I am not going in detail of your intestine, I am just drawing it like this. Okay, so that is your duodenum, the small bowel and the large bowel, and finally the anus. Okay, now another important thing is that anteriorly you have got what? Anteriorly you have got your lungs. Anteriorly you have got your lungs like this. Okay, now what is happening with the patient? What is happening with the patient is that there is something called metacercaria. Okay, there is a larva called as metacercaria larva. Okay, there is a larva called metacercaria larva. Okay, now this is the larva here. This is the larva, and surrounding the larva we have got a cyst. Clear? This is the larva, and surrounding the larva we have got a cyst. Now what will happen is that whenever you eat let us say crabs, okay, improperly cooked crabs. So whenever you eat improperly cooked crabs, what is going to happen is that within that improperly cooked crabs you have got this metacercaria. Okay, so let me, before writing this, let me draw the crab and all, and because it is important in the life cycle anyways. So let me draw the crab, guys. So let us say that this is your crab, tiny crab. right? I hope all of you know by this small picture over here. So this would be your crab like this. I'm not going into much detail. I'm not a zoologist to draw all these things. But anyways, yes. So this would be the crab. For example, let us say this is your crab. Okay. Now, what is happening in this patient is that within this crab, there is a larva called metacercarial larva. So where is the metacercarial larva? Look here. This is the metacercarial larva. Within the crab, this larva is named as metacercarial larva. Cercarial larva. Okay, it is having a cyst around it. Now, what is going to happen with this patient? Whenever you eat improperly cooked crabs, okay, so what is going to happen is that this metacercarial larva, whenever you eat, the larva is going to enter right away into your stomach. Okay, so here is the larva within your stomach. This is the larva over here. Now, from here what will happen? The larva will enter into the duodenum. Now this is important. Okay, larva is entering into the duodenum. So this is the duodenum and you have got your larva inside the duodenum. Now what will happen is that this larva is surrounded by a cyst, as I told you. The larva will come out of the cyst. So this process is called as excistation. Excistation means the larva coming out of the shell, right? The larva coming out of the cyst. That is called excistation. So look here guys, this is the larva that is coming out of the cyst. Now the question is, in which region of our GIT does excistation occur? Excistation occurs in the duodenum, right? So MCQ number 1. So let me write down all the MCQs over here. Okay. So MCQ number 1 is that excistation of what? Excistation of metacercaria. Excistation of metacercaria, where does it occur? Yes, excistation occurs in the duodenum. Okay, so what will happen when the excistation occurs in the duodenum? Now look, what is going to happen is that this larva will pierce the wall of the duodenum. Okay, this larva will pierce the wall of the duodenum and this larva will come out. And from here, the larva is going to pierce the diaphragm as well, and then it is going to enter into the lungs, and that is the reason why it is called as a lung fluke. Okay. Now finally, where is the larva? The larva is within the lungs. Now obviously, whenever there is larva, not only larva guys, any kind of foreign material, foreign organism or a foreign body, right? So anything, if it is in the lungs, obviously what will happen? There will be some kind of pulmonary symptoms, isn't it? There will be some kind of localized inflammation there. The neutrophils are going to come, the alveolar macrophages are going to come, the secretions going to be increased, but whatever it is, pulmonary problems will be there. So what is the first symptom in any kind of pulmonary problems guys? That is cough with sputum, right? There will be cough. So whenever the patient is coughing, what will happen is that this larva is expectorated outside. And what I mean by coughing in the sense, when the patient is coughing, not all the larvae come out, some of the larvae stay inside, right? So you cough and obviously you swallow it. You cough and you also swallow it. That is a normal procedure which happens. So when you swallow it, when you cough, the larva is out. When you cough, the larva is out. When you swallow it, again the larva enters inside your stomach, and from there it enters into the duodenum. But whatever it is, right now the larva is in the duodenum. Now from here, what will happen is that the larva will reach till the anus. After reaching till the anus, what will happen? This larva is going to release eggs. Okay, this larva is going to release eggs. Now, these are the tiny eggs that are released by the larva. So this larva is going to release the eggs. I am going to draw that eggs down. So these are the tiny eggs that are released by the larva. Now the egg inside is empty. Why? Because such eggs are called as unembryonated eggs. Unembryonated eggs. Unembryonated eggs. Okay. Now you might get a doubt you might get a doubt that where did the sexual reproduction occur here? You told me there is a larva. There is no female and male thing here. The single larva itself produced these unembryonated eggs. Yes, the larva itself produced unembryonated eggs. Why? Because all of you know that one very important thing I want to tell you is that trematodes, right, especially talking about trematodes, almost all the trematodes are hermaphrodite. It means they have male sexual and female sexual organs. They need not to have a partner. What? All the trematodes are hermaphrodites except one trematode, that is schistostoma. Except that all the trematodes are hermaphrodite. Okay, so remember this thing, all of these trematodes are hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodite except schistostoma. Right, except schistostoma, all these things are what? All these things are hermaphrodites. So they need not to have any kind of sexual partner. But whatever it is, unembryonated eggs are released. Now once these unembryonated eggs are released, what is going to happen, guys? These unembryonated eggs are going to convert into embryonated eggs. These unembryonated eggs are going to convert into embryonated eggs. So what are these? These are your embryonated eggs. Okay, so unembryonated eggs are converting into embryonated eggs. Now, from these embryonated eggs, when I tell embryonated eggs, something has to be released. Now, what is getting released out of these embryonated eggs? Yes, what is getting released out of these embryonated eggs? Miracardia. So what is getting released from these embryonated eggs? That is miracidia, right? So what is getting released, guys? So these small red color things are getting released. What are these? These are called as miracidia. Miracidia are getting released, right? So miracidia are getting hatched. Miracidia are hatched. From where? From these embryonated eggs. Now look the interesting thing here. The miracidia are hatched. Okay. So once this miracidia are hatched from the embryonated eggs, what will happen? This miracidia are taken up by the snail. So when these miracidia are taken up by the snail, see, human is the definitive host. After the definitive host, the next, these miracidae and all, they are going into another organism, another living organism, right? Like snail. So snail is the intermediate host here. Okay. So what is snail, guys? Snail is your intermediate host. So let us say this is the snail over here, and I'm not sure. Right. So let us say this is a snail over here, right? These miracidia are going to enter into the snail, and inside the snail they are undergoing 3 steps. Now what are these 3 steps? Yeah. So the first stage of miracidia development is called as sporocyst, right? So this one over here, this is called as sporocyst. Sporocyst. Now from the sporocyst, the next stage of development from the sporocyst is called as radiae. This is called as radiae. Now after this, the last stage of development, this is called as, what is this called? This is called as cercariae. Cercaria or cercariae, right? So how do you remember this? You remember this like this, MSRC. Now why am I telling you to remember like this? Because in all the trematode life cycles, this stage is common. Okay, in all the trematode life cycles, this stage is common. What stage? That is the miracidia, right? Then the sporocyst, then the radiae, then the cercariae. These stages are common in all the life cycles of the trematodes. Now finally this cercaria, whatever is formed, look here what is going to happen. Now this cercaria is gonna come out of the snail. Is gonna come out of the snail. Now this is your cercaria over here. This is your cercaria over here. Now this cercaria, right? So cercaria. Now this cercaria are taken up by the crab. Now once this cercaria are taken up by the crab, look what is going to happen. So this is the cercaria here, right? And this cercaria is taken up by the crab. Inside the crab, the cercaria is getting converted into metacercaria. Okay, the cercaria are getting converted into metacercaria. Where is metacercaria? Look, this is metacercaria. You understood this? Right? Now this metacercaria which is in the crab, if it is eaten up without properly being cooked, if it is eaten up by the humans, right, it enters all the way, the metacercaria all the way enters into the stomach, from there to the duodenum. In the duodenum there is a cyst around it, right? So this cyst undergoes excistation. The cyst comes out. Now what will happen? Again the larva is converted into the eggs, right? That is the unembryonated eggs. Obviously they go to the liver. So it is converted into the unembryonated eggs. Unembryonated eggs will convert into embryonated eggs, and embryonated eggs will release miracidia, right? And these miracidia enter into the snail, and again the common stage for all the trematodes, MSRC. MSRC. What does M stand for? Miracidia. Getting converted into S, that is sporocyst. Getting converted into radiae, then cercaria. Okay. Now cercaria, once it enters into the crab, and cercaria will encysst around it, right? And then metacercaria is formed. So process of encystation, okay? So process of encystation. Previously we have discussed a process of excistation. Now I am telling you process of encystation, where cyst is formed. Process of encystation of metacercaria, where does it happen? It happens within the crab. Okay, it happens within the crab. Now I hope you understood this life cycle, right? Now one of few important things we have to discuss here. What are the few important things, guys? These few important things are, the first important thing is that who is the definitive host and who is the intermediate host. Here we have seen two intermediate hosts. The first intermediate host was snail. The first intermediate host was snail, and the second intermediate host was your what? Crab. Okay, so let me write down the answers. Definitive host is humans. The first intermediate host is snail. Second intermediate host is crab. Second intermediate host will be crab. Okay, right. So, and another important thing is that you have to know much more about, and yeah, before discussing that, this box is very important for your MCQs, guys. So sometimes they can give you a diagrammatic, a pictorial representation, right? Image based questions, like they will give the life cycle. They will simply give you a man, some eggs around there, right? And after that again arrow, snail, again arrow, crab and all. If you see man, snail and crab, it is Paragonomus westermanni, right? So there can be questions from the image based as well. There can be questions from this this box which I have drawn here. Okay. Now another important thing is that the eggs, the unembryonated egg. So this is an unembryonated egg. Now why am I so an embryonated egg? Now why am I so fussy about this unembryonated egg? The reason is unembryonated egg is directly releasing from the feces. In the feces I will find this unembryonated eggs. So during the diagnosis, if I take the stool for diagnosis, if I take the patient's stool, within that stool if I find unembryonated eggs, then I can think of this diagnosis as Paragonomus westermanni, isn't it? So this is important, right? So unembryonated egg, and all of you remember that this unembryonated egg has an opening on the top here. This opening on the top is called as operculum, right? So you call it as operculated egg. operculated egg. This is also called as operculated egg. Operculated egg. Okay, right. Next important thing, right? This is the basic Center for Disease Control. They have given this chart, and this is the gold standard chart, guys. So in this chart, as you can very clearly see, the who is the host here? The human, right? So all the way this metacercaria, whatever is there, you see, this is called as a metacercaria. Now this metacercaria has entered into the human, and obviously excitation occurred into the duodenum, right? And finally it lays the eggs and all. Unembryonated eggs are released, then they convert into embryonated eggs, and then miracidia are hatched from this, and they are taken up by the snail over here. Within the snail, 3 stages, SRC, right? So miracidia, SRC, keep this thing in mind. Okay, and who is the infective stage? Infective stage is metacercaria. As I already told you, infective stage in all trematodes is metacercaria except schistostoma. Except in schistostoma, in remaining all cases, right? Except in schistostoma, in remaining all cases, metacercaria will be the infective stage. Keep that thing in mind. Okay, so this is the entire life cycle which you need to know, guys. So this is the entire life cycle. So this is the life cycle of Paragonymous westermanni. So this is all you need to know regarding Paragonymous westermanni. Thank you so much for watching my video. Goodbye.